I need to save my hometown club, Plymouth Argyle, from complete disaster. They are rooted to the bottom of the championship, staring relegation in the face, and it's my job to rescue them using this database with real live results. But I'm not stopping there. My mission is to take Argyle from championship struggles all the way to the very top of the Premier League and winning their first ever Premier League title in the process. But with budget restrictions, obviously the pressure of managing my hometown club and some really tough opponents, this chooses to be one of the most difficult challenges I've done in a while. Now, day one here at Argyle is going to be a bit of a brutal one because there's certain people at the club that I think really need to go, including Neil Dewsnip. In fact, in real life, they've already got rid of him. So let's make sure we do that. I don't think Argyle fans are big fans of Neil Dewsnip. He's pretty much getting all his mates in. But there we go. He's gone now. Now, the table itself, although we are bottom of the league, we're only 3 points away from Portsmouth there. So saving them isn't going to be too tricky as long as we kind of do a little bit of a better job than what Wayne Rooney was doing. And I don't think that's that hard anyway. Now, tactically, Argyle have quite a lot of wing-backs and centre-backs, so I do think going for like a three-at-the-back style of formation might suit us, to be fair. We've got some good players who can play those roles, but we also have wingers in the likes of Morgan Whittaker. So something along those lines might help. I mean, on the inside left, we have the lonely Sissoko, who's quite good. And up front, there's a couple of options, including Michael Obafemi and Tajani, who's also there. And we always go on about Ryan Hardy here on the channel as being one of our favourites in the lower league. So we've got options up front, but I don't really trust going two up front in the situation we are. I think as a solid back three style of formation, this will be good enough defensively to get us out of trouble. Now, in terms of transfer budget, Argyle have £4 million here. I'm not going to spend that. They have just spent £1.5 million on a player, apparently, which is the most that Argyle's ever spent on a player. I think before that was only £1 million. I'm going to do it without spending hardly anything. I think just a couple of free transfers, maybe a loan deal, will be enough. They have also brought in a lone left wing back from Poland who looks quite good. So I don't think I'm going to spend this money, and maybe we look to spend just a little bit of it next season. Our first game of the season was in the FA Cup third round, and although in real life Argyle beat Brentford, we lost to Bristol City here 2-1. But as a good sign of things to come in the league fixture against Oxford, without bringing in any players, we defeated them 2-0 with Sissoko and Tajani getting both goals. And we carried that into the QPR game with a 5-0 victory with a very dominant performance, not even giving them a shot on target. The tactic I built was just a simple 5-2-3 with wing backs. We've got a covering defender in there. We're unbalanced as well, and it's really simple in terms of the instructions. We haven't exactly plugged in anything fancy. It's just working right now. I mean, go and ask Burnley, who came to us at nearly the top of the table, and we absolutely stuffed them 3-1, and even their goal was quite a lucky one. Now, in the January transfer window, we made just one signing after those few good results. I figured we didn't really need that many. James Tompkins, the experienced Premier League defender, ex-West Ham, ex-Crystal Palace, has joined us on a free transfer to help us in our relegation scrap. Although we wouldn't be in a relegation scrap for long if we continue this really good form, because we then went away to Sunderland, which was a massive trip for the Argyle fans, and pulled off a 3-3 draw, the last-minute equaliser. Those results has at least pulled us off the bottom, but we are still level on points with Stoke and Portsmouth and still in 23rd position. But with one win, if ever all the results go our way, we could be jumping as high as 17th place. February, though, started with a bad loss to West Brom at home. Unfortunately, we just weren't at the races and didn't take our chances. But this, I think, was the kick at the backside we needed. We went on a bit of a run. Starting off with a fantastic away 4-3 win to Luton Town, who, if you remember correctly, are one of the teams in and around us. That was a good performance. But what followed that was another 3 wins with 3 clean sheets, and those 12 out of a possible 15 points has propelled us up to 12th place in the championship. The 3 at the back gave us a lot of defensive stability, but the attacking 3 that we have, interchanging with a couple of the guys off the bench who have been scoring when they have been appearing, has been crucial for us. And Argyle fans went from the first half of the season, where we were just scrapping for any point we possibly could and trying to survive, to maybe looking at playoffs. We even went to Vicarage Road, the home of Watford, defeated them 5-0 and had 26 shots with 15 on target. Form-wise, we went from one of the out-of-form clubs in England to the best in-form club in the country. Defensively, we weren't as strong as last month, but we just seemed to be scoring more goals than our opposition. And a lot of the opposition were the clubs that we've overtook along the way, including Sheffield Wednesday, who are the position above us, just outside of the playoffs now. But is that 9 points too much to ask in the remaining games that we have this season? A true indicator whether this is possible is the following game against Norwich, where we won 2-0, absolutely battering them in the statistics, and Whittaker scored 2 goals. We even welcomed Sheffield United, who are trying to get a playoff position as well, and beat them 4-1. Some of the goals we were scoring as well, we were tearing teams apart. Teams that have great defensive records just couldn't handle us in attack. We even travelled to the other side of the country, to the Riverside Stadium in Middlesbrough, and gave them a double sucker punch, scoring in the 8th and 9th minute. Our run of league wins just keeps on going. We haven't dropped a single point since February with that loss to West Brom. I don't know how we're doing it. We have 1 game left against Leeds United, who have just gained promotion for themselves, and that game will determine whether we gain a playoff spot or not. And although Leeds are a fantastic team, possibly playing them in the final game when they've already guaranteed promotion was the best thing for us, because we were outstanding as well. Victor Poulsen scored on the 6th minute. Adam Forshaw put us into the break 2-0 up, and we left home park with a 5-1 victory, securing our playoff spot, which was absolutely amazing. The only downside is the team we've got to face in the semi-final to get to Wembley is West Brom, the only team that's managed to beat us in the last 3 or nearly 4 months. The first game was played at our home park, and with the scoreline being 2-2 in the 91st minute, Plymouth-born Adam Randall made it 3. A fantastic result, but now we've got to go to one of the hardest stadiums in the league. And at the Hawthorns, West Brom have been fantastic, and that proves dividends when they managed to equalise on aggregate with a Carlon Grant finish to take the game to extra time. And this, unfortunately, is where things went wrong for us, because Victor Poulsen on a yellow picks up his second, and he's off for an early shower. And unfortunately for us, West Brom capitalised and scored in the second half, eliminating us from the playoffs in the semi-final second leg, 4-3 on aggregate. As devastating as that was, though, we've got to take in consideration where we were when we took over. 24th position, and we ended up finishing in 6th place, which is absolutely insane. West Brom went on to win in that playoff final and get themselves promoted to the Premier League, which has to be our aim for next year. We finished with 78 points. We were rock bottom. Watford actually got themselves relegated in the end with 43 points, who finished rock bottom. And since we took over, this is where the statistics have been. Morgan Whittaker was the top scorer of the league with 13 goals. Adam Forshaw, Whittaker and Victor Poulsen all had the highest average ratings, and Daniel Grimshaw had the most clean sheets. The impact that we had at Plymouth Argyle in our first season using this 3 at the back system was absolutely insane. But the downside is, well, this player and this player who scored a lot of goals, they're only on loan. We need to replace them in the summer. And again, Plymouth Argyle don't spend a lot of money. We can't be just chucking millions to get ourselves promoted. We've got to be really smart. We've only actually got about £5 million in the budget, so I think we've just got to be smart. Probably use a loan deal, maybe a free transfer to fill these 2 roles, and just bank on the fact that these guys here have been absolutely exceptional and hope they do it again. So throughout the summer, I brought in Thomas Verheid, a 32-year-old Dutch striker who's a bit of a monster, 6'4", good amount of strength, jumping reach, natural fitness, good heading ability. All right, he's 32. He cost us 250k, but he did score 15 goals last season in the 2nd division in Turkey. And to go alongside him in that left wing position is Morgan Rogers. We spent a bit of money on this loan deal, including his wages. It is quite a gamble for just having him for 1 season, but he can play from the left. He can also play up front, and we definitely know his quality. Unfortunately, though, we started the season with a loss, 1-0 at home to Coventry at home park. And considering how good we were at the end of the season, though, only losing, of course, to West Brom in the league and in the playoffs, that kind of worries me. We then travelled to Stoke, though, in the following fixture and picked up a really good win with Thomas Verheid getting 2 goals. However, this is where problems started to arrive, because Thomas Verheit then got himself injured, damaging his cruciates. Now he's out for 7 to 11 months. The August curse of me signing a new player is still haunting me this late in FN24, which meant I had to be smart in the transfer window to find his replacement, and I did. On deadline day, I brought in David Washington from Chelsea on a loan deal. Will this man be a better replacement and score the goals that Tijani did last season? Since Thomas's injury, which came in one of these two games here, either Stoke or Cardiff, we have relied on Ryan Hardy, and he has paid us back with a couple of really important goals and picking up some wins. We are also knocking Fulham out of the second round of the EFL Cup. We've got Rotherham in the third round, so that's promising. But I really need these results in the Championship to be better, because right now we're sat in 14th place, nowhere near the playoffs. David Washington, though, came into his first game at home to Leicester City, who've only just been relegated, and put on a performance, giving us a 2-0 win. And he continued to score a lot of goals, and some important ones, and our form started to pick up as soon as he was brought into the side. We did hit a bit of a rough patch at the beginning of November with 3 losses in 4 games, but the relationship between David Washington and Morgan Whittaker has been a revelation for us and carried us up the league table into 3rd place. No cup run for us though, as Rotherham knocked us out 5-1 in the 3rd round. The board, however, did not back us in January, and it began to worry me slightly as results started to not really go in our favour, and we picked up a couple of more losses. It was a rough month. We only picked up 1 win at home to Birmingham. We drew quite a few games and lost in not only the FA Cup 3rd round replay, but against Blackburn, which means now we are kind of dropping down into 5th place, and those top 2 spots are pulling away from us. We needed a situation like last season where we just went on a great run of games, and we got that in the very first game of February, defeating Wolves at Molineux. That seemed to give us the incentive of winning. Alright, we drew a couple of games, but most of the time we were picking up 3 points, and in the Championship, a good run of games like that can really change things, and as you can see, we're just a point off Sheffield Wednesday. March was a little bit worrying. We went a whole month without David Washington scoring a single goal, and considering he was one of the league's top scorers, that did concern me. But 3 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss to Coventry away from home were still right on the tails of Sheffield Wednesday for that automatic promotion spot. Middlesbrough, I think, are just uncatchable. They're 10 points clear with only 6 games left. However, in the first game in April against Portsmouth, David Washington was back, and this was the kick that we really needed. Ending the month with a win away to Southampton at St Mary's, which gave us 5 wins from 5 in April in the lead up to the final game of the season. A tie against fairly local rivals Bristol City in the Championship, with us just needing to get a point to secure promotion. And against such a tough opposition who also found themselves in the playoffs in the Championship this year, we fought really hard but conceded 3 goals. But we also scored 3 goals, and although they pegged us back from 1-0 up, 2-1 up and 3-2 up, that point secured us automatic promotion in 2nd place, and Plymouth Argyle for the very first time are going to the Premier League. And although that is such a relief, our job here is certainly not finished yet. Arguably, the hardest part of this challenge starts now, because we got to survive in the Premier League in the first season after pretty much 2 of our 3 best performing players in the Championship are going back to their normal clubs now. David Washington got his 21 goals. Morgan Rogers, arguably a better signing as well, 10 goals and 18 assists from that left-hand side. Morgan Whittaker had a good season, not amazing. We've got to replace these players now, and if we're looking at really using this system going into the Premier League season, there are some players who also, if you look at our first team, are on the wrong side of 30. We've got 3 players there who are 34 going into the Premier League season. Might not have the legs to carry them in that league. And we have £34 million of a good enough wage budget, but Argyle don't necessarily have a good reputation. It's normally really difficult to bring players this far down into the southwest who want to join the club because, well, it's quite far away from London or Birmingham or Manchester. Attracting players has always been Plymouth Argyle's hardest thing to do. Making sure our transfer budget spreads quite a lot, Brenner comes in first off for just £3.1 million. The Brazilian striker hasn't scored a goal in the Serie A for over a season, so that's quite worrying. But I do think he could be quite crucial, certainly coming off the bench. Bringing in young stars like Oscar Zambrano, who not only improves our first team, but could potentially come in at a much better player 3 or 4 years down in the future that either we sell on or just benefit from his ability. £1.6 million as well is an absolute bargain from Ecuador. Probably my favourite signing of the window, though, is Pafundi. 19 years of age, this attacking midfielder comes in at just £3.5 million. He has not been given the game time he deserves at Udinese, who probably have suffered from us buying 2 players now. And I know we're not playing centre attacking midfielders right now. Are we changing formation, or do I stick him out on this left-hand side, which I think could be really good for him? I think the best bit about this window is being able to find players like Pafundi, like Iñaki Peña here, a goalkeeper who comes in for just £2.5 million. Picking up these bargain players that can help us next season and improve our first team is going to be crucial for survival. The most amount of money I spent at the start of the window was on Archie Brown, a left wing-back, for £6.5 million. And even that's not a lot. And although that broke the transfer record, arguably a more impactful signing is a free transfer in Malcolm, who used to play at Barcelona and is now putting on a Plymouth Argyle shirt on a free transfer. Duranville comes in on loan from Borussia Dortmund, and he's going to give us an option from both wings and maybe even an option up front. More free transfers joined, including Lucas Mazopus, and although he's 32, he's very versatile and will work wonders down that right-hand side. Possibly the biggest bargain, though, was Tommaso Pobega. We haven't brought a midfielder in just yet. He now joins us as probably our best centre defensive midfielder, and we signed him for £1.5 million from AC Milan. Our new record signing, though, for Plymouth Argyle is Martin Vitek, a centre-back from the Czech Republic, only 22 years of age, good pace and strength and agility. £8.75 million from Sparta Prague. Our final 2 signings, though, of the window, Ben Davis joins as a backup for that left wing spot, but mainly to play left centre-back, I think, is a really good option for us. He obviously brings a plethora of experience from his time at Tottenham. And Yusuf Chamiti from Everton, he's going to play up front for us, I think, instead of Brenner, and give us a better option up front in terms of that powerful force that we can use from set pieces and crossing the ball in early to him. But I am willing to still try this tactic in this league. It's a shame that obviously Malcolm's come in and stole the likes of Morgan Whittaker's position, but last season he did kind of drop off. A lot of the players on the bench are still our championship team that aren't necessarily the highest end of championship player, which I think is where we might struggle if these players on the pitch right now fail to manage to play as many games as possible and we pick up some injuries. But we're going into this Premier League season with the first game at home to Brentford, an away trip to Brighton, and then away to Stamford Bridge. As we always say, every game is difficult in the Premier League, but especially so when you're a newly promoted side who's never played in the Premier League before. Morgan Whittaker did in fact start in the opening fixture against Brentford, however we did lose that game 3-1 at Home Park. The trip to Brighton the game after wasn't exactly much more friendly. They beat us 1-0 thanks to a goal by Evan Ferguson. But then in arguably the hardest tie out of the 3 early fixtures we had in the Premier League, away to Chelsea, we picked up 3 points with a massive 2-1 victory. There wasn't any more transfer activity as the window closed, and we are indeed sticking with this 5-2-3 formation, and I want to give as much game time to Pafundi on the left and Zambrano, who could be the future of this side. These 2 young talents could become world-class players. In September, 2 more wins follow with a home victory against Ipswich Town, as well as another 2-0 victory against Manchester City at Home Park, where we didn't even give them a shot on target. I don't know how that happened either. This, unfortunately, ended the run of good form, though, because we just took a lot of losses after this point. In fact, after that Manchester City game, we went 2 whole months without winning a game and barely even scoring a goal. Just 3 goals were scored. One of them was even an own goal. We didn't actually win a game until December, where we went to Middlesbrough and won 4-1, as well as picking up a win at home against Bournemouth with just a measly 1-0. This meant that we were indeed in and around the relegation zone, and look at the teams around us. It is the teams that we have beat, which meant that we're not really taking any points off of any of the top half of the Premier League, outside of course, Manchester City and Chelsea. I mean, we never really expected to win the Premier League straight away, of course. I just really hope that we do manage to survive. We're in with a shout, don't get me wrong, but I do think now that we go into January, this January window, we need to capitalise. The board have given us £18 million. We need to find somebody new to bring in to maybe excite the team, bring the team to life, and kind of, I don't know, force something to happen. Locking in Profundi and Zambrano has been good. Profundi has been absolutely one of our best players. You can see from the up arrows as well. He's enjoying his time there. And Zambrano, I think, just giving him those minutes is going to benefit him in the long run as a young Ecuadorian midfielder who is just adapting to the Premier League. But what can we do with that £18 million? That's the big question for this January window. Well, I felt like we needed goals, so I brought in another striker. Chukwuemezi joins us. The 24-year-old Nigerian striker is a bit of a powerhouse. He's 6'5", good pace, good strength, exactly what we need, I think, to give us some goals towards the end of the season. This pretty much is a make or break signing. Put him in up front. Can he score us the goals that will keep us in the Premier League? Well, he did in fact score on his debut the opening goal in the 91st minute away to Brentford, and it was a cracking finish as well. However, we failed to pick up the 3 points because Kevin Schade scored in the 93rd minute. That being said, we did actually beat Brighton on New Year's Day 4-0 at home park, and that actually takes us to 17th in the Premier League, alongside the point that we got away to Brentford. We were also eventually knocked out of the FA Cup in the 5th round when we had an away trip to Sunderland and lost 2-0. February was a bit of a bleak month. We scored just 1 goal, and that was away at West Brom, and thankfully it did give us 3 points thanks to Profundi's volley. We're still scrapping away though. We got a win against Nottingham Forest at the very end of January, and if we're looking at the Premier League table, we have a bit of a gap now from us and the drop zone. During the January window, we also dipped into the loan market, bringing in Stefan Bajcetic from Liverpool, a really good, versatile player who can play in defensive midfield or at the back and really helps us in terms of squad depth. And he scored the winner in a 2-1 victory when Manchester United came to home park in the middle of March. And that is a cracking victory for us and 3 very vital points. A draw away to West Ham during that month as well, in the only 2 fixtures that we had, meant that in the Premier League we've jumped up to 15th place on 31 points, with Sheffield United 5 points behind us now. April didn't start great though. We got battered by Everton. But then 3 more draws against teams that are either around us or above us, and that in the Premier League is crucial. We are still just 4 points away from the drop with 4 games to go, so anything can happen, but touch wood, we should be safe. However, a loss to Sheffield United in the following fixture, who was the team trying to chase us, is making me very nervous. And we followed that with a loss at home park to Crystal Palace, where we were clearly the better team, but they just took their chances. We desperately needed a win to confirm our safety in the Premier League, and thankfully an away trip to Bournemouth is just what the doctor ordered. A defensively strong performance, picking up 2 goals and the very crucial 3 points. The final day of the season seen us lose again at home park against Newcastle, which is something we need to change next season. But the Premier League is as good as what it can get. Safety. That's all we wanted. 17th place, 34 points, just 3 points away from the drop, but it doesn't matter. We're playing Premier League football next season. I do think that's quite lucky though. If we're looking at statistics, our top scorer throughout the whole season has just 6 goals. That's really, really poor and relegation standard. So I think tactically we do need to switch around. Yes, this was amazing from helping us gain not only safety, but a playoff spot in season 1, then of course promotion in season 2, but I don't think it's good enough with the players that we have right now and the players that we could potentially bring to Plymouth Argyle to keep us in the Premier League in a long-term basis. I think we've really got to look at a switch up and try and secure things up defensively. Not to mention as well, I mean, who are we going to bring in up front? Because right now we don't necessarily have an out-and-out goal scorer, which is just we can rely on next season. We need to look into the transfer market We've got £42 million. It's whether anybody actually wants to come to Plymouth, because that's what we've always struggled with. Start of season 4 then, and we begin bringing in some players that again are really good for value. Franco Orozco, a fantastic winger for just 3.9 million. Federico Redondo is another fantastic player that we picked up from the MLS. He goes straight in alongside Tommaso Pobega as one of our best centre defensive midfielders and gives Zambrano a bit of a rest. Only 23 years of age and only costs £6 million. A bit of experience still for on the wings or up front in Munir. Again, quite cheap though. The 30-year-old comes in at just £4.5 million. A man now that can play on both sides of the fence. 28 years of age, Serna Kola, a fantastic wingback who gets forward whenever possible and crosses early. I like that in my wingbacks. I like them to have some attacking threat, and he only costs 2.5 million. We mentioned about shoring up the defence though, and bringing in Esteve definitely does that. From Sheffield United, who just got relegated, but the pace and strength alone is why I've brought him in. Not to mention he's also left-footed, only 24 years of age. He did cost us 19 million, but that's cheaper than what Sheffield United paid for him last season. I couldn't resist bringing in Lewis Miley though when I seen he was up for sale. At just 20 years of age, fantastic potential, really consistent player as well for £12 million. Don't panic though, I haven't forgot that I needed a striker. I found somebody, one of my favourite all-time strikers on any football manager. Welcome to Home Park, Andrea Belotti. The veteran striker is a beast. I've always loved Andrea Belotti on this game. He is a fantastic striker, picking him up on a free transfer from Como. I'm still unsure tactically right now. We're a little bit away from when the season starts. I'm thinking of a 4-2-3-1, but that might change, to be honest. We've definitely got the basis for a 4-2-3-1. The players coming in suit a 4-2-3-1. I just think there might be something better that we can go for that defensively will help us next season. And that's when I decided to go a little bit deeper with a 4-3-3. Instead of having another man up there, we've used Profundi quite well from that left. Let's keep him there. We've now got an abundance of really good centre defensive midfielders with Pobega, with Redondo and Zambrano, and of course bringing in Lewis Miley, who needs the game time. Let's lock him into a Segundo Volante role, which we might not necessarily play already. He needs to become a natural in that role, and see if we can help this defence out with a 3 kind of deep defending midfielders. Schedule-wise, at the start of the season, we've got Tottenham up in that first game, so that's going to be entertaining. And there has been some players who have left the club, including Morgan Whittaker for £15 million and Brenner for 4.6. But even with all of these changes, the Premier League preview still puts us down in 19th place at 600 to 1. But there is nothing I love doing more on this game than upsetting the odds, and that's exactly what we did from day one as Pobega found Belotti for a 1-0 win over Spurs. And in classic Jose Mourinho fashion, we followed up that 1-0 win with, yes, you guessed it, another 1-0 win, and again, it was Andrea Belotti. The 1-0s didn't last, however, I am quite pleased with how the start of the season has gone. The only worrying part of it is that we're not scoring too many goals, but still, 7th in the Premier League after 4 games. It's hard to argue. At this point in our journey towards winning the Premier League, we need to be smart, and I don't think going attacking and we'll score more goals than you and almost getting ourselves relegated is the right move right now. To my surprise though, we did continue to upset the odds and we did score more goals, like going to Anfield and picking up a 3-1 victory. Although our form wasn't fantastic, we picked up so many draws that the lack of losses meant that we were doing really well this season. Alright, we're out of the Carabao Cup in the quarter-final. We also are playing at Bristol City's ground, which tells me something is happening to Home Park. But in the Premier League, we're sat in 7th place with just 3 losses, and only one team has done better than that, and that's top of the league, and we beat them 2-1. Already halfway through the season, and Belotti and Malcolm and Redondo have scored 5 goals, which is almost more than what Malcolm scored, who was our top scorer the whole of last season. The board didn't give us any money in the January window, but I don't necessarily felt like we need it. Our squad is quite big now, and our players have been doing fantastic stuff. We went to the Etihad in the 4th round of the FA Cup and knocked them out 3-2, and we followed that with a 2-0 win against Arsenal in the 5th round. Andrea Belotti was having a lot of fun in the second half of the season as well, as when we welcomed Brighton to Ashton Gate, he put 4 past them in a 5-0 victory. He wasn't gunning for the golden boot or anything. Erling Haaland was running away with that with 22, but he's done enough to keep us in that 7th place spot, and with a chance of European football next season. Profundi has been another standout performer this season though. The 21-year-old has developed lovely and his performances has made him the first name on the team sheet. We seem to be the bogey team of Brighton and Hove Albion as well, as we beat them in the quarter-final of the FA Cup after extra time with Munia's 111th minute goal. That meant we went to Wembley to face Tottenham in the semi-final of the FA Cup and Vitic scored the opener. Just 10 minutes later and only 15 minutes into the match, another attack down the left-hand side and a bad tackle leads to Profundi scoring us a second. Spurs only managed to pull one back, and we're in the FA Cup final in just our second season in the Premier League. Sometimes a good cup run can mean that your league form will drop off, but not the case with us this season, as we then welcome Liverpool and we beat them for a second time 3-0. Which, as it was, is a really good omen considering that's the team we've got to play in the FA Cup final. More pressing concerns though, as we've got 3 league games left and 3 tricky ones: Chelsea, West Ham, Manchester City. But we are on form right now, with only 1 loss in the last month, and we're in 6th place in the Premier League. As it stands, we have European football next season. Frustratingly, we were robbed of 3 points at Stamford Bridge when Esteve unfortunately scored an own goal in the 87th minute. There was another own goal in the following fixture against West Ham, this time Lewis Gibson in the 90th minute, but thankfully Ekwemezi scored in the 91st to save us a point. A final day loss to Manchester City though means that there is no win in the last 3 games, and it means that our hopes of European football could be on the ropes. However, somehow the teams around us failed to capitalise on it and we still finish in 6th place, gaining ourselves a Europa League finish next season with 60 points, and Andrea Belotti finished 2nd in the Golden Boot with 17 goals. Defensively, we were fantastic, finishing joint 2nd with the most clean sheets with 15 in this season, and the fewest conceded we were down in 7th. Not to mention the most goals scored, we were joint 6th with 60. But of course, it's time for the FA Cup final against Liverpool. And it was a joyous start for us at Wembley as Andrea Belotti got onto a bad back pass and gave us an early lead. But 20 minutes later, and from a throw-in, a cross to the back post and Szoboszlai is equalising the score. But unfortunately for us, just 2 minutes later, and the same man on the counter-attack for Liverpool finds himself in space in our box and smashes in a second. In the second half, I was hoping we'd come out a lot stronger, but once again, Liverpool down the left-hand side and from a throw-in finds Luis Diaz in space, and it's 3-1. Unfortunately, however, it wasn't our day, and a ricochet back to Chiesa finds a 4th, and Liverpool lift the trophy. I can't be too mad at the result. It's fantastic that we managed to get there. It's more important that we focus on the league title though. In terms of the squad, it was a lot better than last season. 19 goals from Belotti is fantastic. 12 from Malcolm was better than last season. Simon Profundi though with 10 goals and 16 assists is probably the highlight for me. He had a cracking time. And we now have £80 million to spend this summer to try and capitalise on what hopefully will be a cracking Europa League campaign for us. We brought in 4 new players this summer, starting off with Kevin Kelsey, a 6'4" striker who likes to beat the offside trap. My perfect type of striker with that 17 off the ball, good ability at finishing and heading. And I like the fact that not only is he only 23, but he only cost me £26 million after a 14-goal in 26-game season at Shakhtar. Bit of a bargain as the Italian left-back Valeri came in, just 28 years of age, and £4.6 million from Parma. Felt like we could improve the goalkeeper situation, so we brought in Bart Verbruggen, only 24 years of age. He came in for £23 million and will challenge for that first-team spot. But the final signing to come in was Kobbie Mainoo. He's only 22 years of age. He fits perfectly in our midfield, and I think the development is still there, and yet he still has potential. I love this signing because he only cost me £29.5 million, a deal that I almost made last season. 4 good signings coming in then, and they all go straight into the first 11, which I actually think makes us a lot stronger than last season. Can we capitalise, maybe break the top 4? And of course, we've got that Europa League campaign to look forward to. But first off is a trip to Newcastle in the opening game. And new striker Kevin Kelsey makes an instant impact just 5 minutes into his debut in the Premier League, scoring against Newcastle and with a cracking finish on his left foot too. We did only draw that fixture, but he was hot off the start against Brentford as well, in a game that we actually won, scoring after just 4 minutes, and he got a brace against Leeds United and a hat-trick against Crystal Palace. Yes, we lost to Hull in the EFL Cup, but I'm not too worried about that. Kevin Kelsey has been on fire. 7 goals in 4 games at the start of the season. And I'll hold my hands up, I've never heard of him. Genuinely. We had some very winnable games in the Europa League, starting off against Antwerp in a victory that we picked up 4-3. But the best result we had in the league phase was against Juventus as we travelled to Italy and beat them 2-0. And considering this is our first time in a European competition, we won 8 out of 8 games and only conceded in 2 of the matches. I don't quite know how we've managed to do that, whether we were just absolutely exceptional or the other teams that we played against were just as pathetic as you guys are who haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Adapting to being in Europe though did cost us some games. We actually lost 4 Premier League games in a row, including Chelsea, Arsenal and Liverpool, but then beat Manchester United 3-0. And unfortunately for us, the run didn't exactly get much better up until we got into January, which we are now also in the FA Cup too, and in the Premier League we're currently sat in mid-table. Although Kevin Kelsey has still been on good form, he is the second top scorer right now in the Premier League, only behind Erling Haaland. Outside of stuffing Arsenal 4-0, we've had a really rough time in February and even being knocked out of the FA Cup. However, we now know our opponents for the Europa League, and it's FC Twente, who we managed to cruise past and go through to the quarter-final, defeating them 6-3 on aggregate, with Kelsey scoring more goals. Leading into a tie with the other team who won 8 games out of 8 in the league phase, Nice. And in a very close tie, we defeated them 3-1 on aggregate with 2 goals from Kelsey. We went into the semi-final away from home against Rapid Vienna and pick up our 1-0 win through Kobbie Mainoo. And it's at this point where I feel like we have to win the Europa League if we want European football next season, because our league form hasn't exactly picked up to the point where we're knocking on the door of 4th place. But a 2-0 win in the second leg at home park, 3-0 on aggregate, and that means Plymouth Argyle are heading to the Europa League final. And it's a familiar face in that final as we've got to face Everton. We wrapped up the league campaign with a cheeky 2-0 win against Brighton and Hove Albion, which unfortunately only secured an 8th place finish. Not quite good enough for any European football just yet, but Kevin Kelsey had 19 goals. Hopefully his season of goals hasn't ended there though, as we head to the Europa League final. The stage was set though. Our 4-3-3 goes into the Europa League final against an Everton 4-4-2. And just for the time being, our quest for winning the Premier League takes a pause as we try and win the Europa League. It was a very quiet first half an hour, but when Profundi got the ball down the left, his cut inside and finish was perfect to give us the lead. And we managed to double it just after half-time with a cross to the back post, and you guessed it, Kelsey was there. But time was up for Everton. They failed to create any chances, and Plymouth Argyle are your Europa League winners. I actually feel kind of bad because Everton went on and sacked their manager off the back of that. I mean, they must have had a terrible league season. They finished in 16th place, but the Europa League, unfortunately, that was a battle that Plymouth Argyle was going to win. And now we play Champions League football in just the 6th season, but we are way off the top of the Premier League, which is the ultimate goal. Kevin Kelsey was a revelation this season, just 33 goals in 50 games. Simon Profundi, though, worked really well with him, getting 20 assists. He has been absolutely fantastic, and again, the development this season has been exceptional. The board, though, they've given us another £67 million to prepare for Champions League football. One casualty to the first team is Martin Wittek. He's already gone to Bayern Munich after they matched his release clause of £33 million. So with him leaving, it leaves a gap open in that centre-back slot that we might have to fill this summer, as well as Malcolm. I'm not quite sure whether Malcolm is the right guy for us in that right midfield spot, or even whether this tactic is the right tactic to go for. I know it sounds silly, we just won the Europa League, but we were nowhere near in the Premier League. We were really bad in the Premier League, in fact, and got quite lucky that other teams around us were just as bad. I think I need a more reliable tactic that we can use in this country, but it obviously depends on recruitment as well. It looks like the Argyle board have the same ambitions as I do, as they look to expand the stadium by 12,000 seats, which will cost £30 million. On the outs, we finally sold it Kumesi, who hasn't really been in the side since our first season in the Premier League. But Malcolm is also going to leave the club. A Damac offer came in for £9.25 million, and I found a perfect replacement. That being the 22-year-old French winger, Matisse Lambourd. This guy is mustard. Absolutely exceptional in terms of dribbling, finishing and first touch. Cracking technique. His mental attributes are phenomenal too. He has fantastic physicals and he has the player traits of likes to beat the offside trap and arrives late in opposition area from the right hand side or up front. Like, I'm not even joking. If somebody said you can build a winger slash striker however you like, give him whatever attributes and then the player traits that you'd like, that would be very similar to the build I would create and the player traits. That's what I would pick. The signings didn't stop there though. I think you're going to like this one. And that's because we signed Lois Openda on a free transfer. I don't know why nobody else came in for him, but he was there, available, on a free. We went for him. Somehow we got him. Now I don't know what to do tactically. Also on a free, we picked up a young right back who actually might stick in the first team but just make available for the youth team. There was also David Zima who came in on a free transfer for that centre-back role, but we've actually picked up a permanent sign-in that will go in there as well as this free transfer. And that's because we signed Junior Moanga. The young French centre-back can also play in defensive midfield and has all the attributes we need to be a really good ball-playing defender. I made one final sign-in bringing in Ricardo Pepi on a free transfer just as a backup option for our new two-striker system. Yes, that's right. We're going two up top, and of course, now that we've got Lois Openda and we've got Kelsey, we've got options as well. Buffon can go naturally in that shadow striker role. Lambord on that right-hand side, I think, will be crucial for us. We've got enough defensive midfielders to make this work, and I think our defense is probably our weakest spot on the pitch, but I still think it's good enough to challenge for the title. And from the opening day of the season, I was already enjoying this partnership with them up front. We were also really unfortunate against the Champions League winners Real Madrid in the UEFA Super Cup, as Marc Guéhi scored in the 98th minute when we were 3-2 up until the 84th. Also imagine the shock that Real Madrid won a Champions League. Outside of that loss though, it was a fantastic start. We even went to Brentford and won 5-0. We gave some teams absolute tankings like Manchester United, who came to Home Park and lost 4-0. However, we were way too inconsistent and drew far too many games up until Christmas. And yet surprisingly, this put us in third place, only behind Manchester City and a point behind West Ham. As well as the league title being up for grabs, we of course are playing in the Champions League this season and we took that by storm too. Going to Munich and absolutely battering Bayern 4-1 and finishing in the top 8 of the Champions League phase with 6 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss to Arsenal. We crashed out of the Carabao Cup at the semi-final stage with a loss to Manchester United 4-1 in the second leg, and Chelsea knocked us out of the FA Cup with just a 1-0 victory in the 5th round. A bad loss to Spurs 6-2 at home and a draw to Chelsea also meant that we fell off the top place of the Premier League and dropped down to 4th, but just 2 points behind Manchester City and Arsenal on 60 points. We cruised through the round of 16 of the Champions League when we come up against the Dutch side Feyenoord, who couldn't handle us. But then we had a tough quarter-final tie against Manchester City and we took the lead in the first leg 2-1, defeating them 2-0 in the home leg, which meant we go through 4-1 winners on aggregate into the semi-final of the Champions League. Once again, our league form did improve, although we were giving up some silly points like this result against Arsenal. We took the lead quite early on in the game, but we failed to capitalise on the performance and ended up giving away 2 points when they equalised in the 93rd minute thanks to Martin Ødegaard. And that one could be really crucial when it comes to the end of the season. And that's because as we head towards the final 2 games of the season, we're in second place behind Arsenal by 3 points. Our minds had to switch back to the semi-final of the Champions League though, as we faced Real Madrid once again, but this time they beat us 4-2 in the first leg. These final results, the second leg of the Champions League, possibly a final of the Champions League, and the last 2 games against Brighton and Newcastle could make or break this challenge. Unfortunately for us, we could only get a draw at Home Park to Real Madrid, meaning we were eliminated 5-3 on aggregate, but we did ourselves proud. We did, however, keep the pressure on Arsenal as we defeated Brighton in the penultimate game of the season 2-0. Annoyingly, they played Chelsea and got a victory though, 2-1. Meaning we go into the final day of the season with a very outside chance, but it is possible. We're 3 points behind on the same goal difference. However, Arsenal are away to Liverpool and we're at home to Newcastle, who have nothing to play for in 10th place. Meaning, if we win and Arsenal lose, we will beat them on goal difference alone. We held up our end of the deal though when we played Newcastle and we got 3 points. Sir Nicola scored the opening goal just before halftime, and the other side of it, a great attack down the left-hand side left Ricardo Pepi in the box to slot in a second. However, with the game at Anfield being dominated by Liverpool in terms of chances, it finished 0-0. And Arsenal are crowned Premier League champions by just a single point. Touching distance of the trophy, but I think we've really got to take the positives from this. We've started to get a lot of our players' names in terms of the goals, average rating, player of the match, and that's the reason why Plymouth Argyle are in second place. Now we need to capitalise on that. We only finished on 78 points. To win a league title, you tend to have to round about that 85 mark. Even Arsenal didn't get that. This was an off season for everybody. Next season's probably going to be tougher, which means looking at the tactic and the players that we have right now, I think our best 11 is good. But we need to make sure the players coming off the bench are just as good, and possibly bring in another defender in terms of really at fullback. I think that could be the way to go, and our transfer budget of £75 million should be enough to allow us to do so. Okay, so there was a lot of movement in the window with some players leaving who were in our first team for money and some who just refused to secure further contracts, but we definitely replaced quite well. I mentioned how we could get a better left fullback, and I think Parisi is the guy. He's 28 years of age, so he's in his prime, but attacking wise, he's fantastic. Defensively, he's good as well. He runs with the ball down the left. We picked him up for just £22 million. On the right-hand side, because we lost Sir Nicola, we did need to bring in somebody new, and Michael Reese comes in. He's English, he's a new gen, not quite as good technically. The physicals and mentals are definitely there. He is still young though. £34 million seems quite pricey, but there's not a lot of good right backs in the market, which you actually think is a problem with Football Manager. It does seem like when you go kind of into the future, well, like talking 6-7 years, the rate of like new gens come through in certain positions is just non-existent. Back to the transfers in though, and I think we have certainly upgraded our centre-back slot. Aruna Sangant comes in. He's 27 years of age, again in his prime, but look how much of a physical monster he actually is with 17 positioning. Really good work rate, great anticipation and aggression. I like this guy a lot. Now, he comes in for £57 million. It is pricey, but remember, we did sell Mwanga for £31 million to Al Ali. We only brought him in for 33 the season before, but I think this is a certain upgrade for £20 million. And those are the type of upgrades we definitely need, as well as depth. Lewis Ferguson comes in and he gives us depth in the two attacking midfield and defensive midfield positionings that we certainly need, and he's really good as well. He doesn't get into the first team, surprisingly, but coming off the bench, he's going to be amazing. And then finally, we got Desiree Doué, another free transfer who's going to fill in that centre attacking midfield slot when Profundi can't do it. Again, a quality player on a free transfer. Start off the season then, and our team does look rather similar if you're looking at our best 11 outside of the 3 new defenders coming in into our back line. But I think that's exactly what we really needed. Attacking wise, we were fantastic last season. We've just got better options coming off the bench now. Is this a sign of things to come though? Because our opening fixture is an away game to Brighton, and we absolutely stuffed them 4-0. But then I did think, well, defensively against Luton Town at home, it was quite a disaster. And it got worse because the third game we lost to Nottingham Forest. I do always find that as well. I think you have a really good season, you then improve your team, and then the following season with the exact same tactic with better players, you do a lot worse. Things did slightly pick up on the way to January as we defeated Arsenal 7-1 at home park after, of course, they won the league last season. And Kevin Kelsey, of all people, once again proving that he is the top dog in the Prem. Because 4 times already this season, up until January, Kevin Kelsey has took the match ball home because of scoring a hat-trick. The only team we actually struggled against was Liverpool. And surprise, surprise, as we get into January, that's the team we are chasing for the league title, as we are 9 points behind them right now after they've only lost 1 game all season, and we've lost 4 because of our bad start. Kevin Kelsey, though, is certainly running away with that golden boot. 7 above Erling Haaland, Sesko and Isak right now, with the highest average rating. Unfortunately, there's no money in the budget to actually improve our side as we go into January, so we're going to have to stick with what we've got going into the second half of the season. We finished strong in the Champions League phase, winning our last 2 games against Milan and Feyenoord, which then propelled us into that top 8 qualification stage. And we had another great month as Kevin Kelsey managed to pick up another hat-trick against Brighton, and we won all of our games. Unfortunately, the first game of February, we did pick up a loss against Manchester United at Old Trafford, and with Liverpool up next, we are still 7 points behind them. We do still have a really strong team available for us. The only downside is Lambord has picked up a bit of a knock and is still coming back from injury, meaning Openda will drop to the right-hand side and Pepe up front. Our advantage is that the game is being played at home park. And after Kevin Kelsey put us in the lead on the 20th minute, just 2 minutes later, Reece is running down the right-hand side and our other striker, Pepe, doubles our lead. And with just 5 minutes later, an exact replica of what just happened as Reece, once again, down the right-hand side, fires across, and it's Pepe again to give us a 3-goal lead. But we are still in the first half, and we still aren't finished. Openda finds Kelsey, and it's 4. Liverpool did score 1 back through Kvaratskhelia, but 4-1 was the scoreline, and the Premier League does look obtainable with us just being 4 points behind them going into the final 12 fixtures. In the following game, we lost to Arsenal in extra time in the FA Cup 5th round, but we had to play them next in the Premier League in arguably a more important match. And this was a much better day for us, as in the 91st minute, Ricardo Pepi scores the winner. Switching back to the Champions League briefly, Kevin Kelsey scored 4 goals in a 5-0 aggregate win against AC Milan in the round of 16. And in between those two fixtures, we faced off against Manchester City at home park, beating them 3-0. We followed that with 2 more wins against Sunderland and Norwich, meaning the Premier League title race was certainly on, as we were now just 2 points behind Liverpool. In the Champions League quarter-finals, we were drawn against Bayern Munich, and after a 4-1 away leg win, we then took them to home park and gave them a 4-2 hammering as well. That's right, an 8-3 aggregate victory over Bayern Munich. All of our league fixtures in April seemed to go really well outside of a Spurs draw, but would that be enough to keep putting on the pressure onto Liverpool? Well, funny enough, they actually lost 3-0 to Manchester United at Old Trafford, meaning the title race was well and truly on once again, with just being a point behind them. And also, Kevin Kelsey, 29 goals already this season. And with us breathing down the necks of Liverpool in terms of the title race, we also had the Champions League, where in the semi-final we went to the Bernabeu and beat them 2-1. And that fantastic result in Spain meant that we could potentially be playing in the Champions League final whilst also tracking down that Premier League trophy. A 3-1 win against Crystal Palace in the Premier League next, and looking at the results, Liverpool battered Chelsea 5-1, which did get me a little bit worried in terms of our chances of them dropping any points, until I looked at their schedule, with their final 3 games being Arsenal at home and Manchester City away before a home tie against Sunderland, who are bottom of the league. To put it frank, we need them to really screw up in those next 2 games if we want to be lifting the trophy instead of them. Our confidence and focus in the Champions League certainly wasn't there, and Endrick scored 4 goals with 2 going into extra time to make sure Real Madrid keep up their run of being the best team in Europe. Disappointing, yes, but we really needed to make sure our league form was better. And when we were 2 goals down at Stamford Bridge until the 84th minute, I got a little bit worried, but somehow we salvaged a point, which rightly so could have been a disaster if it wasn't for the fact that Arsenal took points off of Liverpool. We just needed to make sure the following game against Wolves we guaranteed ourselves 3 points, and Kevin Kelsey was on form. And while he was setting us off to the races early with a goal in the 6th minute, guaranteeing us those 3 points that we desperately needed, Liverpool were continuing to have problems, failing to score against Manchester City in a 0-0 draw, meaning that we go above them for the first time this season, leading the Premier League going into the final game. And while they would enjoy a home tie against already relegated Sunderland, who only have 13 points this season, we were going away to Southampton, and although they've got nothing to play for, it's a tricky fixture, especially knowing that a win will lift us the Premier League trophy. But we cannot deny the fact that we deserve this if we do manage to do so. Kevin Kelsey has 44 goals this season in 43 starts. The likes of Ricardo Pepi, who's been very much a bench warmer, has scored 22 goals. Lewis Openda's got 16 with 11 assists. This team is full of talent, goals and assists and fantastic performances. We haven't got to the semi-final of the Champions League through luck. it is by merit, and if we do lift this Premier League trophy, we fully deserve to be doing so. Going into the final game of the season though, we have a few players who are quite injured, but we cannot afford for them not to be on the pitch. We need to win this to complete our goal. And so the stage is set. We know that with victory today, we will be crowned Premier League winners. At halftime though, the nerves were kicking in because we were still 0-0 against Southampton, but according to the latest scores, Liverpool were 6-0 up going in at halftime, meaning that they were currently going to be lifting the trophy. But with Plymouth Argyle needing a goal. For the last couple of seasons, there's been one man we've always relied on, and here he is again, Kevin Kelsey. A player who before signing for Plymouth Argyle, I have never heard of before in my lifetime. A gamble, somebody who I thought for £26 million could be very hit and miss, but somebody who has continuously performed season on season, scoring 32 league goals in 31 games, and somebody who could be scoring the winning goal, lifting Plymouth Argyle the Premier League trophy. But that was it. The one goal was all we needed to make sure we picked up the very crucial 3 points and to make sure that Plymouth Argyle are the team to be lifting the Premier League. An absolute fantastic achievement that we have managed to do from the very death of the Championship relegation just 7 seasons previous. Plymouth Argyle are your Premier League champions. And if you're looking for something more to watch, on screen right now is a video of how Dad and I took on the Youth to Gold Challenge.